Welcome to Design Domination, where you'll learn to become a better, more business-savvy designer so you can dominate your competition. Hi, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Colleen Grotzer, and in this episode of Design Domination, I'm getting into 5 common web accessibility mistakes. So if you're a web designer or a web developer who's currently doing anything with website accessibility, or if you're looking to get into it, this is for you. Now, these are just a few of the types of mistakes that I see when I do website accessibility audits. But I also want to give you some actual data about how common some of these mistakes really are. So I'm going to also share with you some data from WebAIM. WebAIM tested the top ranking 1 million websites, and they found that 98% of them failed a basic test of accessibility. And there were, on average, 51 errors per page. 51. And 97.4% of home pages had detectable WCAG 2 failures. Now, they said these sites failed a basic test of accessibility. And it's a basic test because they tested it with Wave, which is an automated tool. And automated tools can only detect, on average, about 25% to 30% of potential accessibility issues. And, some might detect fewer issues, some might detect more, and then some do better than others on certain websites than others. But the point is, these are really shocking statistics. I mean, this is really sad. And what's sad about these statistics is there's likely many other accessibility barriers on these websites that would only be found through manual checking, because that's how you find the majority of accessibility issues. Okay, so let's get into some of the mistakes. And the first one is using low contrast text. And I see this all the time, not just on the web, but also on printed materials and even on food packaging. And this actually happens to be one of the most common WCAG 2 AA failures that WebAIM found on those websites. It was actually found on a whopping 86% of pages that they reviewed. And this is a huge problem because users with visual disabilities, other than blindness, of course, like low vision or color blindness, they may not be able to read that content. But really, it's not just them. A lot of people who don't have a visual disability might have a problem reading content with low contrast. That could be body text on the page. It could be text within an infographic. I don't have a visual disability, but I constantly come across instances of white text on a yellow background or white text on a light blue background that I can't read. And I'm sure that I probably use these colors together at some point in my career too. But if you want something to be read, you have to think about the colors that you're using together. Mistake number 2 is using no alt text or incorrect alt text. Now, a lot of web designers and developers and their clients don't think about alt text. If they do, they might write inadequate alt text, which means that they may not say enough about the image. Well, WebAIM found that alt text was missing on images on almost 61% of the pages that they checked. So this means that users of assistive technology, such as a screen reader, those people don't know what is shown in those images. In fact, they won't even know that those images are there at all. And alt text tells them what that image contains, what it's a photo of, what any text in the image might say, for instance. So that means that they're missing out on information because the information may not be anywhere else on the page for them to get it. That's not to say you want to add alt text to everything. It's not a free-for-all. Some images actually should not have it. And when they don't have it, they'll be ignored by screen readers. The other thing that WebAIM found was that of the images that had alt text, 9.6% had questionable or redundant alt text. Now, in this case, that means that web users got incorrect information in the alt text. Maybe there was an image of a dog, but the alt text said it was a cat, right? Or maybe they got the same information more than once, and that can be a nuisance. Sometimes what I also see when doing audits is that there's too much alt text and that the author editorialized. And that means that sighted users get less information than those that use a screen reader. I also find that sometimes there's alt text on decorative images, which just gets in the way of assistive technology users getting the information that they need. Now, I talked all about alt text in episode 100, alt text for images. So if you want to understand more about it, how to write it, all that stuff, be sure to check that out. Using too much ARIA is another common mistake that web developers make with accessible websites. WebAIM found that 60% of pages with ARIA had more errors than pages without ARIA. And on average, there were 48 ARIA errors per page. That's a lot. So what this means is that web developers used ARIA incorrectly, or they might have added it where they shouldn't have. In some cases, it's like pulling out a rifle to shoot a fly. It's just overkill. The developer might actually take 10 extra steps to add that ARIA when they could have just used the proper tag in the first place. Again, when I do accessibility audits of websites, I see this all the time. And in most cases, well-meaning developers end up overdoing it. And this actually causes more accessibility issues. So it makes the content less accessible. And then in some cases, I've seen them unintentionally override content for users of assistive technology by adding that ARIA. It's really important to understand that not all content needs ARIA in order to be accessible. So the rule is don't use ARIA unless you have to. Another mistake is tagging headings incorrectly. I often see web designers and developers, and again, their clients too, formatting body text as headings to get it to look a certain way. But how it's tagged matters because that's conveying meaning to users of assistive technology. And also, though, those users can navigate page content with those headings, which should be used for introducing new sections of content. You know, if it's a one-line paragraph, let's say, and it's tagged as a heading, that changes its meaning. WebAIM found that 1 in every 21 headings was improperly tagged and that there were skipped heading levels on 38.4% of all pages they tested. They also found that 10.6% of pages had no headings at all. If there's a lot of content on a page and there are no headings, then someone using a screen reader has a harder time finding the information that they're looking for on that page. So that's why that's a problem. Okay, so one other mistake that I see quite often is that focus outline 0 or none has been used in the CSS. A lot of web designers and developers don't like how the focus looks by default, the focus style, so they remove it instead of restyling it. I get it. I used to do that too before I knew better. But this is actually one of the single worst accessibility mistakes that a web designer or developer can make. Because what this does is remove the focus indicator from interactive elements on a page, hyperlinks, buttons, and form fields. Focus is necessary to show sighted keyboard users where they are on a page. So when you go and remove it, those sighted keyboard users cannot tell what interactive elements, like where they are on the page. I hope this has been helpful for you and that you think now about how some of your design and coding choices affect others. And your designs can still look great. They'll just be more functional and user-friendly too. If you want to find out more common mistakes that web designers and developers make when building accessible websites, you can download my free guide, 5 Mistakes Developers Make When Building Accessible Websites at creative-boost.com/5mistakes. And that's 5, the number 5. And by the way, these are totally different mistakes than the ones that I already mentioned here. So you won't get a guide that has all the same mistakes. You'll actually get different ones that are also extremely important to be aware of. And I also just want to mention that all the data that I've shared in this episode is copyright WebAIM, and their website is webaim.org.